Alex, you're all set?
Yes.
Ready?
Okay, we're going to get started because we want to stay on schedule and get over to the cocktails as quickly as possible. I know it's been a long day. All you groups here, thank you very much. I think all the judges would tell you you did an excellent job, and it was a very, very difficult decision. I want to real quickly introduce our judges, and they're all in the resume books. I'm not going to go through their prestigious careers, but thank you very much. You guys took this really seriously, and I know you thought through it really hard, so we all appreciate you coming. We couldn't do this without you. So, in no particular order, in alphabetical order, Michael Brower from BPG, VP and Director of Evaluation. John Durham from Cushman & Wakefield. He's the Senior Managing Director and Branch Manager for the Mid-Atlantic region. He's got a nice office downtown. Lucky enough to have Kim Diamond, Managing Director and the Business Leader for U.S. Mortgage Groups at Standard & Poor's. So thank you very much, Kim. Robert Fahey, Executive VP with Capital Markets Institutional Group with C.B. Richard Ellis. Thank you very much, Robert. You got all the kids could tell me who the toughest judges were. Bill Glazier from Keystone Property Group is kind of getting a reputation already, I think. Thank you, Bill, very much.
He has a reputation. You're just learning about it.
And Natalie Castellani, she is the real estate reporter for the Philadelphia Business Journal. You guys, if you get on her blog, you've already been blogged a little bit. So she's talking about the competition, and we thank Natalie for coming out. It's been great to have her here. And Christopher Lizzie, he's the president of ULI still, that's true, right? And also founding principal of P-REIT Capital Advisors. So thanks for coming back, Christopher. And that's our judges. So we're going to let our groups come in. Only the judges can ask questions. No comments. And I know all you guys are probably going to feel like you were better than the groups you're seeing, but the judges are unbiased and did the best they could. So let's give them their fair due. And I hope you all feel that way, right? You just keep going that way. So let's hear what the group has to do. Air George, if anybody didn't meet him, you guys read about all week. Is sitting right over here. He's going to talk to you guys after they go and while the judges deliberate. He's going to come and tell you a little bit about his perspective on the project. We thank Aaron for coming up this afternoon, too.
Maria has the time for it.
How do we want to do this?
What's the time?
Out in the middle, I'm pretty sure.
You have a card? Or? Okay. And you'll tell us at 5.
I'll give you 5 and 2.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot. What's that? Yeah. Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jared. These are my colleagues Boris, Tina, and Avi. And on behalf of WPA Real Estate Partners, we're pleased to present to you what we believe will be the future of Tyson's Corner. Now, the Tyson's Demonstration Project's stated goal has 2 primary objectives. The first being to inform the comprehensive plan, and the second being to illustrate what a future development may look like under said plan. With that in mind, what we're going to do today is walk through the model pro forma results. These are going to be the base case results given the information in the case and nothing else. We're going to temper that with a feasibility and risk analysis. And we do have serious concerns about the feasibility of the project, but we'll go more in depth into that. And finally, we'll wrap it up with our recommendation of what we believe should ultimately be done with the site. Just to get started then, demographics. As of the 2000 census, we have a population of 18,500 people, median age of 36. You can see median income for a household of $74,000, slightly, well, quite a bit higher than the national average. So that will affect our target users. And again, purely based on the information given in the case, what we would do would be 10% retail, 60% office, and 30% rental residential. From the retail perspective, we would do ground level, obviously, only. Focus on high-end stores, boutique, unique stores that are different from what's presently available. Specifically, we focus on a high-end grocery store, health spa, fitness center, some boutique restaurants. We've already got quite a few chains in the area, as well as a cinema to provide some more entertainment options for the people that we're wanting to work and live in this area. From the office perspective, again, purely ideal scenario, we would be trying to draw businesses away from the higher priced DC downtown and bring them out to Tyson's Corner. We currently have a good mix of high-tech, defense, business services, and then consultancies as well out there, and we would continue to target that. And finally, from the residential side, just given the relatively small household, we would focus primarily on 2 bedrooms, 55%, 1 bedrooms 35%, and then 3 bedrooms 10%. So that would be the proposed mix. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Tina, who will take you through the base case scenario.
All right, so Jared discussed what assumptions went into our base case scenario. Given the rental assumptions were given a 6.5% cap rate, we found that the sale value would be about $732 million. After paying down the cost of construction, we have about $332 million to distribute to equity investors, leaving the equity investors with a 55% levered IRR. LPs would get a 53% levered IRR, and GPs would get a 75% levered IRR. However, given the riskiness of this project, we really want to sensitize it for cap rate changes and market rental rate assumption changes. We first found the break-even level, which is at 6.9% cap rate, which is a mere 0.4% cap rate increase. We saw the GPIR go down to 0. Similarly, if we kept 6.5% cap rate assumptions, but we just sensitized the office rental rate down to $41, which is only $4 down for $45 per square foot, we found that the GP's IRR goes to 0. We built out what we found to be a relatively conservative downside. We didn't think we went too negative. We kept office rental rates at $30, which is what around the local market is showing at currently, and we increased the cap rate up to 6.9%. And here we saw basically that our net sales price after the pay down for construction would not be enough to cover the 8% preferred required to limited partners. Given these 2 scenarios that we just talked about, we realized that basically in anything but a perfect situation where you got all the market rental rate assumptions that you were giving in the case, and you got a 6.5% cap rate, and you leased it up to 90% during the construction period, and was able to sell it right after construction, you would get the expected value for the developer. However, we do not be given the riskiness of this project. We wanted to focus the next part of our presentation on a in-depth risk analysis that sort of leads us to believe that the real value of the project comes from land value appreciation, a carefully planned phase development plan, and finally I'll talk a little bit about the macro level risks associated with this project. As many of you know, the demand for real estate, specifically office space as well as retail space, really comes from macroeconomic trends. So 2 factors we really wanted to concentrate on was consumer behavior as well as unemployment. Before the recession, consumer consumption was driving our GDP growth. It was 70% of our GDP. Personal households were not really saving. We saw a drastic drop in personal saving rates before the recession. However, going forward, we think that this trend is going to reverse. We think that personal households are going to try to delever, spend less, save more, and I think that this is going to not bode well for the retail space. In addition, as far as office space goes, job growth is hugely important, and we've lost over 8 million jobs during this recession the past year and a half or so. And even assuming a normal GDP growth, it would still take a couple of years to get us back to normal demand fundamentals. Finally, sort of looking at an aggregate level, national cap rates, the NACREIF reports, basically the height of the boom, we dropped all the way down to 6% cap rates, and at the bust, we went all the way back up to 8% cap rates. So given the volatility and given the fact that right now we're at 8% cap rate, and given the fact that a 0.4 cap rate takes our GP IRR down to 0%, we're seriously concerned with the riskiness associated with this project. And Avi now will cover the local market and investment-specific risks.
All right, so thanks, Tina. So Tina just took you through exactly the national picture that we see currently, looking forward at trying to go and make this investment a success in the long term. Taking that down into our current office market that you will be developing on going forward, vacancy rates locally are an all-time high, and they're affected by the same trends that national vacancy rates that determine national vacancy rates. New construction has completely stopped in the area, following national trends as well. However, even though that's a positive sign, meaning that there generally should be positive demand for new construction going forward, net absorption levels are so low that the same trend that Tina reflected on the national scale would definitely apply here as well. We would see a long time time frame before net absorption would allow for all of the excess space in the area to actually lease up to its full potential. Furthermore, the DC market would actually see a lot more appreciation in terms of value and rental from the reverse in the trend. Going into investment-specific risks, just the history of transit-oriented development. Successful transit-oriented development is generally, historically, extremely hard to predict. Here, with this particular project, the transit-oriented development we see, the Dulles DC or DC to Dulles metro system, a cheaper deal was rejected in 2007 for the government during one of the biggest bull markets that we've seen, simply because it was just too expensive going forward. The government was really concerned about their role, their money, where it was going, and the planning and control nightmares that they saw across the board. The development design problems, specifically within Tyson's, there were quotes on architects and figuring out exactly how they would implement a lot of the specific site transportation in the site and the design problems there. There would be congestion problems if the actual transit would fail. And the metro success probability would just really depend on the ability of the DC Metro company to manage the metro system and the Dulles Airport to actually successfully develop it. And this is a huge risk for you guys going forward because you're making your decision and planning around the success of this DC Metro system. Now, looking at this specific metro system, it's going to cost much more. It's $3.1 billion. The first phase will establish 4 stops, but the only jobs that will be established from the beginning in the local market are 700 jobs for local workers. The general rule is that there are 2 to 3 jobs created for every local worker that will come in just to work on this and related businesses. So the rest of the demand would have to come from created value in the development, and that's a big risk for us. Looking at land value should appreciate with transport. We are looking at this as a long-term land value appreciation project. However, in this first phase, we don't want to lock into any improvements on the land that will limit the ability for us to capitalize on future success or future land value. These developments at the very beginning, at the base phase, are so important that getting the wrong mix and doing the wrong development at the start would have a tremendous cost and would be really damaging going forward. So now Boris is going to focus more on what our plan is, taking into account the macro level risk, the investment specific risk, and just how to determine how to make this a successful project. So.
Thank you, Avi. So Jared illustrated what an ideal scenario would be. Tina showed you all the macro level risk factors that we're facing, and Avi talked about the location specific risk factors that we believe are important to this project. Now that we've identified these risks, we have to figure out how to turn these into opportunities at some point. We believe that the current value for this project really fundamentally is driven by the consumer behavior of people commuting into DC from surrounding areas. This project would allow people to come in much easier, much more efficiently, and much cheaper to people by living right outside the area at a convenient location. However, we don't believe that we can come in, build large office properties, and pull jobs outside of DC where agglomeration economies are already occurring and try to get these big companies and large tenants to come outside and into our new Dubai that we're building. So therefore, we believe that phase 1 development really has to be a fundamental response to demand that we can actually tangibly see and account for. So some ways that we can actually mitigate this risk, for any of our commercial tenants, it would have to be leased beforehand. It would have to be pre-leased where we know what's coming in and we get the money and we know the lease is going to be signed. And additionally, we want to just really avoid these lock-in grand vision plans that remove our optionality and ability to stay flexible and nimble and learn how the market's going to grow and how this transportation infrastructure is actually going to affect the local demand and how it's going to really materialize. Therefore, to us, this land is really a long-term call option on the value of the area. Therefore, our phase 1 development, the initial thing that we would ever put in would have to be residential, given, again, the trend of people commuting into DC. We would also want to focus on retail coming in after, because people need amenities, and it would be the most easy thing for people to have local access to these amenities. However, office would probably be much further down the line, And retail and office are something we would only want to keep an eye on while we're still planning our residential to tie in with the progress of the transportation infrastructure as well as the demand and behavior that we see from people. Therefore, we really just want to learn this market through phased development and gain expertise over time while preserving the optionality and being flexible. So this is what a timeline would look like if someone had a gun to your head and said, you have to build it today and I'm going to force you to put the money in. Thankfully, we're in America and no one can force you to put the money in, but this is how you would stop the bleeding and, if you will, damage control. You wait a few years for the U.S. economy to hopefully recover. You would track the progress and try to start in with residential and follow up retail and office down the line. However, we do not recommend this plan because we fundamentally think that the land is overvalued. Doing a quick math back of the envelope, so again, ideal scenario, Disneyland, where you have the $30 residential, $45 office, $55 retail, 6.5% cap, NOI $47.9 million, your value $732 million, and the cost $487 million. Back that out, your land $245 million. At $116 million, that's a no-brainer. This land is steel. However, more realistic, we drop the rents down to 30. We have 8% caps, and now the land is worth negative $65 million. Therefore, don't buy it. Now, if you actually wanted to justify this land purchase, you would need 6% caps and $30 rents using the same residual analysis that I just took you through. Or you could look at it as the rosy rent picture of Disneyland with 8% caps, and then you could buy it, and maybe you break even. So that's our presentation, and thank you for your time.
Do you have any questions or?
Judge is going to have one.
Good. Hold on, guys. I was looking for you to take a position.
Yep.
What are you going to model? Take a position.
Don't buy it.
Don't buy it.
Don't buy it.
Don't
We
buy
got
it.
the don't buy. Alternate 2. We got that the first time around.
Yep.
Alternate 2. If you're going to buy it, what does it look like?
If you're going to buy it, I'll tell you what it looks like. To justify buying it at 116, and you want to have your 6% caps, you need $30. And with $30 rents, you need a 6% cap, which unrealistic. Or if you have your rosy rents, which we showed before, probably unrealistic, with a realistic cap of 8%, that could also justify it.
So are you asking what the actual mix will be? So we will start out, if we're forced to buy it, we'll start out with commencement of planning for residential. We'll go through, and I think the case said 2011, they expect to get all the permits for development. So we would actually go in and start planning out residential. Going forward, we would, at 2013, we would expect residential to be somewhat close to completion. We would also be, during the time, we would be planning for the office because that's required, 50%. However, we think that, in accepting public financing for a transit-oriented development, we don't know what the pressures are on the development company, but we feel like there should be some sort of negotiation because office is as we've shown, unfeasible going forward. So whatever the demand responds to, there definitely should be planning for office. So right now, residential, a little bit of retail mix in for amenities, and then future planning for office during the phase 1 of the development.
And that's only if you. I mean, you're either going to get these rosy rents, which we don't believe, or you're going to get bubble cap rates, which we also don't see.
And I think
But he owns all the grounds around it. He doesn't have to buy it, but he wants to buy it.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
But he didn't want to pay. You're telling him don't pay 116.
Yeah.
right.
Right? That's off the table.
But we're saying also, I think when our second scenario was very indicative in the sense why we don't think that he should buy the land, because we really do believe that accurate market rents are $30, accurate cap rates everything should be capped at 8% right now, just to be on the side of being risk averse. And given the construction cost of $487 million, you actually have a negative residual value in the land. So we really just truly believe you shouldn't buy the land until you can see a feasible situation where there's something other than $30 rents and 8% cap rates. You really shouldn't buy the land.
At what number should you buy the land?
We would do the same residual analysis.
I mean, I guess it just depends on what you think the cap rates and rents would be. But we really think that rents should be $30 and cap rate should be 8%, and we don't think you should buy land because it's negative value. Like, someone should be paying you money to take the land and develop it because it costs more to develop it than to buy the land.
Yeah.
Is there a piece of the land you would buy and do one project and not the other?
We didn't actually.
Where's the negative equity?
Yeah, I guess we didn't. We think the significant portion of the negative equity is actually from office. We are much more positive on the residential sector, and when we calculated sort of based on the rental NOI we would expect to generate an 8% cap rate, it justified a $13 million land purchase. But that's sort of we didn't realize that's for the lot of the land that we would build residential on.
If we just built residential.
If you just scale down the entire project to just residential, $13 million would justify the rental income you would generate.
And we feel that multifamily residential is right now the only market that we would personally go in and actually develop. There are a lot of trends that point towards progress, especially if you build targeting our demographic that we picture for this long-term vision. Young people are moving out and into new apartments. They're leaving their homes and or their roommates, and they're going out and trying to get their apartment for the first time. There's significant demand coming online for residential, and we feel like that might be the only market where we could actually price like the bottom, given the current situation. The rest of the markets just have too much exogenous risk for us to go in right now and to be able to price. For example, today in the Wall Street Journal, the Greek bond crisis and how that's going to affect financing. GDP numbers, are they actually really realistic for us to target growth? So you can look at gross domestic income, and that says that GDP has been overestimated and maybe is or underestimated the actual recession. So there's too many exogenous factors for us to consider those other markets. We don't feel like we can actually accurately price them. But for residential, we feel like we would be comfortable at this point planning for development, pending getting all the approvals.
It all comes down to price.
Yeah.
Have we worked that as
Thank
a residential for sale option?
A condo option. I think we were debating between condos and rental, and the reason why we chose rentals was just in general the supply of condos we view as oversupply in that market, and also rental has proven to be a much more recessionary proof.
If you look right now at numbers very quickly, affordability-wise, rentals are actually more expensive on a, if you will, per month basis than buying. But people can't buy because they don't have cash, and that's why that gap exists. So we don't think it's realistic to bring that kind of supply online.
And also, sadly, I think given the unemployment figures where they still are, I think you have a lot of doubling up, and that actually benefits rental more. So I think people are going to be looking for that more affordable option.
Wouldn't that dictate the terms of the unit?
Yeah, so I was just to touch on that. The unit mix for us would be more targeted towards single units and double units than it would be for 3-person units. That's just to capture on, we feel that there's going to be a shift from suburban to urban environments. As demand in DC especially, there's a tremendous amount of demand right now for government workers. So we feel like as that starts trending upwards, we can capture on that by trying to get young workers from other locations in the country who are moving to DC where there are jobs right now, as opposed to other places in the country. Not maybe there won't be jobs on the actual land itself, but to capitalize on the rebound of the DC market and all the government money that's going on there, we could actually pull in workers and see value there, and maybe structure our mix around that.
What would the incentive be for somebody who fits that demographic located in that location as opposed to living in the district?
Cost.
You take it.
I mean, I think that the fundamental analysis that we'd have to do is what are they willing to pay at that distance from the city. This transportation improvement, it's going to go into a fundamental analysis of housing prices versus distance, an urban economics question. And we would just look at that and say, okay, these demographics, what are they willing to pay? How can we incentivize them to move away from the city or not go there? And really, DC rents are, I think that they're high for this demographic, especially if you're going to be living in DC proper, around the government areas. It makes a lot of sense if you don't have to deal with the traffic to move out a little bit from the city and not have to worry about that. And as one of the judges pointed out to us earlier, we could put in a simple amount of retail. And there is retail already in the area that we could incentivize them to come out even moving away from the city and all the benefits that it has for people in our demographic.
And I think just looking at this timeline, the 2013 date I think we picked to be sort of in line with both when we see the stabilizing of the macroeconomy and also the transportation coming in line, so lower commuting costs that people would be paying to transport into the city.
Yeah.
More questions? Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks for that.
Ready? All right.
Right here.
Oh.
Thank you.
All right, ready. Imagine a place where your morning commute looks like this, rather than this. Imagine working in an office space with the latest green technology. Imagine being able to visit your wife and kids during your breaks at work. Imagine having the DC Metro at the foot of your doorsteps with access to the entire urban and suburban area. Imagine living in an environment with ample vegetation that provides clean and crisp air to breathe. Well, at Tyson's Corner, this place is not just a dream, but it's a reality. Hi, my name's Steven Borzillo. I'm part of the Ecoterra Real Estate Development Group, and with me are my colleagues.
Jeremy Lynch.
Jessica Ramey.
And Lauren Lynch.
Now, before I begin the presentation, I'm just going to give you a little overview of what we're going to talk about. First, we'll give you an overview of what the site itself is and the land we sit on, and how we're going to develop it between the mix of residential, office, and retail. Then I'll go into how we're going to incorporate the community and not just build buildings, but really bring in everyone from the Fairfax community to create a place that people can both work, play, and live. Then we'll tell you how the construction timeline will go on, including costs, and of course the financial valuation, which is why we're all here. And then we'll give you the key takeaways from the presentation. First off, this is the Tyson's Corner we're dealing with in the whole metro area. Over here would be Dulles Airport, and this would be the Metro DC. Now here's the proposed metro line with the 4 stops here, and we're dealing with this slice of Tyson's Corner called Tyson's West. And this is the metro stop we plan to build around. Right here is our selected piece of land, and this is the planned metro stop right here. As you can see, this is a pretty ugly area. It's a concrete jungle. It's not very friendly to pedestrian traffic, and just not a good place to live or work. so that we're looking to really redevelop this area, create a lot more green, make it a lot more friendly for people to both live, work, and play.
This is a rendering of what our brand spanking new Metro West station is going to look like. It's going to connect Tysons West to not only DC, but also the entire greater metro area to allow for easy commuting. We took into account when we made the designs for Neighborhood 1 that this is only the first phase of a much larger transport-oriented development over the next 15 years. We tried to take immediate advantage of the proximity to the Metro West stop by designing an inviting, engaging, live, work, play environment, a sustainable, healthy environment that profits not only our investors, but the greater community as a whole.
Here's our site layout. We decided to go with 7 buildings, 5 front buildings, which are designated to office and retail, and the back 2 larger buildings designated to residential and retail. And we like to say office or business in the front and party in the back. We wanted to make sure we had smaller buildings, creating a more campus feel, allowing a lot more green space throughout the property, as well as a smaller footprint for each building, allowing smaller companies from the local area as well as larger companies to occupy over the 5 to 7 story building layout. This is an overview of the hotel market. As you may have seen from the prior slide, we decided not to go with the hotel. And the reason for this is that Dulles Airport, in its close proximity to the property, has already diluted the market. And we felt that because this is a multi-phase over 15 years, it was important to create fundamentals that would really support the following phases of the project and later have a hotel in a later phase.
All right, now I'd like to talk a little bit about how we chose to allocate the space that we built between office, retail, and residential use. The community did request that a minimum of 50% of the space that we built on the site be designated for office, so we did exceed that a little bit and had a 53% allocation to the office use. We did, as Jeremy mentioned, focus on having green space and courtyards throughout that front office park just to make it a really pleasant environment. Also, to address the parking needs of these 5 office buildings we allotted for 244 parking spaces that would be included in one of the buildings. We had provisions for 2 levels of parking actually above ground in the first 2 levels of that building to address those needs. Cafes and newsstands would be located on the ground floor of each of the 5 office buildings, just as a nice amenity for tenants that would be occupying those spaces, as well as a full-service cafeteria in one of the buildings. That would also just be a nice addition to the complete package that we're providing for tenants. And of course, spacious atriums and just a really nice design concept overall for that front office space. The retail space, we allotted 16% of our buildable square feet to the retail. We did reserve the street level in each building, the ground level for that retail space, just because we did provide for a lot of wide pathways and walkways outdoors with a lot of greenery and shrubbery. There definitely would be some room for outdoor seating for those cafes and restaurants should they choose to utilize that option. Also, just to incorporate the mix of retail to really benefit both the office tenants as well as the residential tenants in the back buildings, we would love to have a small grocery store and or a pharmacy located on the site, as well as a mix of national chains and local businesses, just to sort of bring in some of the character of Fairfax County, as well as some brand name locations that we all know and recognize. And finally, residential space, we ended up with 31% of the area that we built being residential. That well exceeded the community's request for a minimum of 20% that they wanted of residential space built on this site. We do have a combination of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units, which we'll talk about in a minute. And of course, each unit would have energy efficient appliances, as well as ample parking spaces for both the condos that people would choose to purchase as well as rent. Our decision, I guess, or a party in the back mentality to separate those residential buildings from the metro station was just a nice way, we thought, to create a more neighborhood, close-knit community feel in those back to residential buildings. And finally, our decision to sell 70% of the condos, we actually allocated those over the first 3 years of operations for this property, and then reserved the remaining 30% of the condos, or the units rather, to be leased or I guess rented on a monthly basis. So just a little bit more about the front office park there, those buildings highlighted in yellow. There are 5 office buildings total. A little over 422,000 square feet they would encompass is what we would lease as office space in those. We did go with a LEED Platinum designation for these front buildings. We really felt that that would showcase our commitment to being environmentally friendly and just really provide a nice impact for the people getting off the metro station to see some of those LEED provisions that we incorporated in those front buildings. Then underneath this picture we have just a breakdown of a little more specifically what we'd include in each building. Jefferson Place was a building we chose to have the 2 levels of above ground parking, and even go maybe so far as to reserve preferred parking spaces for fuel-efficient vehicles or incorporate some of those charging stations for the electric cars. I think that was one of the LEED Platinum requirements that we'd have to incorporate into that parking structure. Madison Place was the building that we chose to incorporate the 13,000 square foot cafeteria, which we said would be a very nice amenity for tenants of those buildings, and just all the office tenants would be able to access that, as well as a conference center for community and cultural events located in that building. The remaining 3 buildings, Washington, Monroe, and Wilson, are more or less the same, with just like the ground level newsstands, coffee shops, etc., and spacious atriums. And I don't know, we did try to cleverly name all the buildings after presidents that came from Virginia, so I guess you'll see in the next slide we have some more names, but that was sort of our theme, the theme of Virginia for these. So the back 2, highlighted in orange, these are the 2 mixed-use retail residential buildings. We did decide to go with a LEED Gold certification for these back 2 residential buildings. We did basically divide the square footage evenly among them. They do total 241,720 square feet, and 294 parking spaces would be allocated evenly between these 2 buildings. And actually in these back buildings we went with completely below ground parking, just so the entire first level of each building would be reserved exclusively for retail space. Tyler Place is the building that we chose to provide a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, really catering to maybe a young professional demographic in that apartment structure. And the ground level retail would hopefully reflect that type of lifestyle, with maybe more restaurants, bars, cafes, and that type of thing. Taylor Place across the way, we chose to have the 2 and 3 bedroom condo units located in that building, with maybe more family-friendly retail types, such as grocery stores and a pharmacy. Of course, as I said earlier, each unit would be energy efficient and have easy access to below ground parking. I know that the units that we did choose to sell, that 70%, there would be 1 parking space available for purchase that would come along with each of those units. And finally, I mean, this is a smaller detail, but we would love to have a partnership with a car share program. I mean, hopefully the residents who live in this community would really embrace that transit-oriented development mentality that we're hoping to be a theme here. But just having that car share program accessible for those tenants is something that we thought would be really nice as well.
So our site design incorporates a lot of very familiar LEED aspects, but with an innovative twist. We've decided to provide access to our green roofs to all of the employees of our office buildings so that they'll have a comfortable, relaxing work environment. We also installed bike racks and changing rooms, and yes, that sounds familiar, but the purpose is not. This is to connect Neighborhood 1 with the neighborhoods that are going to be built in Tyson West. Also, we've got daylight and views, yeah, but these are fantastic views because we're about to transform half of our acreage of the site, that's our concrete jungle, into, well, a real jungle. We will be using Virginia pines, black huckleberries, and Virginia's own state tree, the flowering dogwood, to transform our site back into something that resembles, well, the native Piedmont area of Northern Virginia. The other advantage of these trees and buildings is that they're all low moisture requirements, so it doesn't require excessive use of sprinklers. We're also planning a cooperative with the Arts Council of Fairfax County and 2 of their existing programs. One is called the Art in the Workplace program, and that integrates works from local artists right into the office, and they rotate on a quarterly basis, giving employees exposure to local artists and benefits basically everyone. The Creative Arts program allows performing artists, literary artists, and visual arts to be integrated into the community, and we plan to invite them both into our conference center in Madison Place in the front quad, and that really nice great area between Tyler and Taylor in our party in the back.
And then that brings us to the actual construction of the project. We want to break ground in October of 2011, and after the 18-month window conclude in February of 2013. We broke it down into 5 major milestones with site work, the parking structure, and then the site build-up, and then the fit-out and the landscaping. And we allotted 45 days to various contingencies that might have come up to us throughout the construction that we didn't foresee. That brings us then to the construction budget. We allocated it over the 18-month window. 60% of the budget was put into year 0, and the remaining 40% in year 1. In year 1, we also pre-sold some of our units as well as the respective parking spaces, which allowed us to minimize our cash outlay and also reduce our risk in the project.
All right, this is just a small snapshot of our return on cost that we calculated for this project. After adding up our hard costs, soft costs, and cost to acquire the site, we did come up with a figure of $405 per square foot. That would be the total amount to construct our version of Neighborhood 1. The sale projection number we got through projecting our cash flows out for 10 years after the completion of this project, in addition to the revenue we would expect to receive from selling the condos, and discounted that back to get I guess the suggested purchase price of $493 per square foot, so that's what we would hope to get when we sold this project at completion. And that left us a nice unlevered return on cost of 17% for our project.
Now we're looking to leverage around 60% of this project, which means we have to come up with 35% of equity. We're hoping you, as the outside investors, would contribute around 30% of the 35%, which is equivalent to around $96.5 million. And T-Rex and Georgia List Group will contribute around 5%, which is around $16 million. Now, we like to be ambitious, and we hope to sell the property as soon as we get handed over the keys by the construction company. But we're trying to be realistic, and we understand you want to shop around for the best offer. So we allowed a year worth of cash flows in our projected pro forma, which including debt service at an 8.5% rate. So as you can see, part of your contract with us as equity partners, you'd receive an 8% preferred return, and this return includes the first year cash flows, which comes from the first year's condo sales, as well as retail and office rents, as well as the final sale of the property. So this will yield you around $15.5 million just off from the preferred return. Then you will also get an 80% split of all the remainder of the cash flows, which once again come from both the condo sales and the rent, as well as the sale of the property, and that will get you around $143 million. So when all is said and done, you will see a profit around $158.7 million off of just a $96.5 million investment, which will yield you a healthy return of around 20%. Now, T-Rex and Georgia List will take a 20% of the cash flows, which both include the first year's cash flows and the sale of the property, and they'll receive around $35.7 million, which is around 30% IRR. Now, you may be wondering, why is their IRR higher? Because they're only putting in a 5% equity, but they're taking a 20% split. This is due to the consulting fees as well as them developing and funding the project.
All right, well, as we near the end of our pitch and presentation about our vision for Neighborhood 1, we'd like to discuss some of the advantages and challenges that we've seen as we've developed this project. Of course, we've talked a lot about the great lifestyle that's associated with living in a place like this, and even our attention to detail as far as even what kind of trees we'd like to plant and cultural events we'd like to incorporate, and really just creating a healthy lifestyle and work environment for the people who would choose to live here. Of course, this project is really built to last. Our choice to use the LEED Platinum designation for the front 5 office buildings and LEED Gold designation for the back 5 really displays our commitment to being environmentally friendly through this project. And also, it is just a really innovative and fresh concept. There aren't really many projects around the Tyson metro area that are similar in size and scale or scope to this project. So we're excited to sort of be the first pioneer of this type of development. However, that does sort of filter over into the challenges side of things. Being that this is the first project in the series of developments, we're not exactly sure how we may be received by the local community. However, we are really confident, just based on the way we've incorporated a lot of the requests of the Fairfax County Planning and Zoning Commission, that our solutions and suggestions for this Neighborhood 1 would really be well received by the local community. Additionally, this project is designed for long-term profit. As we discussed, our choice rather to not include the hotel that the site was zoned for, as well as maybe including less retail in this site, which was one of the more profitable aspects of building here, really displays our commitment to finding an ideal mix for the site that we feel is the best fit for the community and creating a really great building block going forward as more and more neighborhoods similar to this are developed around our project. The added expense of LEED certification was something that we dealt with, sort of totaling up the construction costs for these buildings. However, we are confident that these added expenses are well worth it, simply because we're hoping to attract better quality tenants that would like to stay in our buildings longer. They're going to be a great place to work, plenty of great views, natural sunlight, clean air, and green space outside. And also that we would be able to command rent premiums in the local market based on these great factors for the LEED certified buildings. And finally, this project does rely on the success of added metro stops and the continual development of metro stops in the area. The success of the metro overall in the DC area makes us really confident, though, that this project will take off once the metro becomes more integrated into the DC metro itself.
Some of the key takeaways from our presentation: one, we believe there's very strong market fundamentals, which is why we were able to create such an innovative design and concept. And because it's so innovative and unique, it's a great fit for the region, which in turn will yield us attractive net and absolute returns. And because it's going to yield us attractive net and absolute returns, we feel this is the right project to begin the development. We'll use this as a springboard for other phases in the Tyson's Corner development. So at this time, imagine an investment where you can make $60 million in 3 years. Imagine a return of 20%. Imagine being part of a community transformation. Well, you don't need to imagine anymore if you partner with us at Ecoterra. Now open up the floor for questions.
I just got a question. Going back to numbers for a second. In going back over what you proposed to build, five office buildings of about 422,000 square feet, plus 2 residential buildings totaling about 241,000 square feet. The numbers that you showed were like just under 400 million total cost.
I think you might have misinterpreted our numbers.
Yeah, I think I did.
Each of the buildings total for 422,000 square feet of office space for the entire front quad. So that's spread out over 5 buildings. And each of the buildings has a floor plate just under 19,000 square feet.
So reconcile that back to the that cost where you showed a 17% on the left.
Yeah, I know we don't have it broken down in the slide.
We can show you one of the buildings.
Pro forma.
So you were
Yeah.
that 321 million was the whole.
That's everything.
That was the entire project, the entire site. Yeah.
So you're able to do that entire project for 321 million.
Yeah, let's show you one of the buildings.
Well, a
So-
lot of it takes in
Buying the land for 116?
Yes.
We'll also take into account 50% of our space is green space, so we're leaving a lot of land untouched.
The buildings range from 5 to 7 stories high. Here, pull up the first pro forma. Okay, so this is Jefferson Building. The front 5 office buildings are very similar with small changes. Jefferson has the parking garage, Madison has the cafeteria, the other 3 have newsstands and cafes. As you can see, we're working with about $280 a square foot. And, okay. So our cost to build this building itself is just under $20 million. If you consider this building is roughly similar to the other front 5, that would make it roughly $100 million for the front 5, just over $100 for the land. And here is our assumptions for Tyler Place, and here's Tyler Place. And that is just about $30 million to build. So that would bring you to your 300.
And that's one of 2 that are nearly identical in cost. So roughly it does add up.
That just, it sounds like there's something out of whack here. 116 million for the land.
Yes, we thought the land was overpriced. But if you think about it, now at first that was what I believed. But when you realize the potential of the land, it becomes a lot more valuable. As a concrete jungle, it's not worth a lot. But when you think about it as a mixed-use community with almost 500,000 square feet of office space and 250,000 square feet of multifamily, it is worth it.
What kind of rents are you projecting on the office?
I believe the case said $45 rents.
I think we did add a premium in that we would expect to get based on the LEED Platinum certification. I think it was 7% in addition. I know, unfortunately, it's really small. Some of the printout we were able to, they're a little more readable.
Yes.
Relative to your selection or choice to build 5 office buildings, was there a height limitation factor that came into play as opposed to a couple of taller towers?
Should I answer? We had a floor area ratio limit of 5.225 for platinum LEED buildings. And the reason we chose to build 5 smaller buildings than 2 large ones is we thought it would be very intimidating if we followed the original plan of going for what would have been a 50,000 square foot floor plate in order to build the square footage we wanted to and follow the floor area ratio. We thought it would be very intimidating to local businesses to be just one tiny company lost on this huge floor.
Also practically, just having to do with the layout, I mean, this does get into detail, but we did choose the LEED Platinum for those front 5, and the way the site was situated, I know with the LEED Platinum, actually the longest face of the building should be facing south. I think that's one of the provisions. And so looking maybe how the site had been laid out initially and trying to figure out how to either turn those buildings or resituate or get new, I guess, architectural features of them, we decided too that for the 5 buildings, it would sort of be easier to have those all situated in a way that would make them more, I guess, LEED Platinum friendly.
I think I found an answer to your question. The reason why, can I just get the quick? The reason why I feel the construction is lower because we also take into account the pre-sale of the buildings or the condos. So the first year, even though we're not directly receiving revenue, I think we're going to take that proceeds to pay off the construction loan. So in turn, we're paying less interest. So I think that's why the building costs, in reality, without the pre-sale of the condos, would be higher than the 320. Does that make sense?
Doesn't make sense. It still doesn't make sense.
Okay, I don't get it.
If you take 321 and subtract 116, it gives you 205, 205 million. And you got to divide that by 660,000 feet, which is your 2 residential buildings and your 5 office buildings. So if you take 205 and divide that by 663, just to give you an idea, that's $300 million a foot. So it is
That's higher than I thought it was going to be because Ace has the numbers lower.
yeah.
Right. Well, there were premiums for construction for the Platinum, which maybe it's different than the initial numbers in the case, but we did calculate out cost per square foot that we'd have to pay for the office buildings are obviously the most expensive to build. And then also the parking is factored into that too. The below ground parking in the back was relatively more expensive. In the front office, we chose to do the above ground parking, the 2 levels there.
Right,
So-
because for the office buildings, we weren't, within the bounds of the case, we were not permitted to sell the spots in the office building. So we're paying for all these parking spaces, and we're not allowed to collect any revenue on it. So that changes the aspect of the building as well.
I mean, intuitively, the numbers just don't seem to be, but I'd have to go through it. But it actually did, you did a very persuasive job of opening with a theme, developing a theme, and closing it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What do you see as the biggest risks if we're being considered, or we're considering this strictly from an equity investment perspective? Where's our biggest risk?
I really think finding a buyer for this type of property, especially it being maybe the first of its kind in this area, although that does make it sort of an attractive investment, I think it would take the right type of person with the right type of vision to really think that this building was going to succeed in the way that we think it was going to succeed. And also it is contingent too, I think, a lot on the success and timing of surrounding developments. This is the first one, obviously. There are definitely plans for parks and neighborhoods in the surrounding area. but not having any certainty about when those things would start. This could be standing alone for a while. It could be surrounded by buildings very soon. Like I think that's the big risk and uncertainty with this project.
That's why we also factor in a year worth of cash flow. We're not going to jump on the first offer just because it's we don't have to pay a loan. We figured we'd do a year of searching, try to get the best offer possible.
Also, allowing the year allows time for the development of the other neighborhoods and for the development of similar neighborhoods across the country. Because currently, although there are areas like this, it doesn't have many comparables. So it's very hard to determine the value of something when you can't compare it to something else that's similar to it. And allowing the extra year would give us that opportunity.
Tell me again, you said you're going to make $60 million off our investment, correct?
Correct.
So put up 100,
Mm-hmm.
I get 160 back,
Yes.
right?
Roughly.
And we get that in 3 years.
That's correct.
And that assumes that you're not $100 million late on your construction costs.
That's correct.
Yeah, that assumes all other numbers are
Yeah.
right.
Well,
But we're confident in them.
you have to trust Sean Hatton. He's the one who made the case.
I got to tell you, I think this is the hottest project I've seen all day long. This is fabulous. It'll sell. I don't think your numbers work at all, but I'll give you a whole pass on that.
Thank you.
Focus on the marketing side too.
$75 net they are to put the land. I don't know how this is going to
I'm not sure anything works, but
Right.
that's not your problem.
Right.
Any other questions?
You're not, you're into this thing for, $300 plus for it.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's not the way the case is written. You're not.
Everyone else.
That's not the right one. I'm trying to find your flash drive first. Alright, so.
See, I'm sorry, I'm blind. It's this one. TC46.
This guy?
Yep.
That's so it's gonna cooperate.
Alright, we probably will need it just in case of questions.
Okay, but you know how to jump between them on a PC.
What's that?
You know how to, yeah, I'm assuming you know how to.
Yeah.
That's actually just alt. There, yeah.
So you're saying alt tab?
Yeah, and also, you guys have this slide, I'm assuming you start here.
Exactly.
Alright, we're good to go.
Total cost of $550. So that's the plan on top of it.
Yeah, because they were showing it was like 220.
But this is also.
Is that going to be like our mainstream that we're going to focus on?
Right.
Right.
here. Might go stand over here.
Everybody? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. How are you all today? Good. I'm Will Martin with Metis Real Estate. I'd like to introduce my teammates. To my right is Michael Duncan, Josh Ridpath, and Kristen Corwin. I'm going to give you an overview of how we attacked the project, a little bit of insight on our process, and then an overview of TOD in the Northern Virginia area. Kristen's going to outline our design elements. Mike is going to break down the uses for us, and Josh is going to finish up with the financial analysis and our final recommendation. We started the project by defining the problem definition. And then we looked at it from a quantitative and a qualitative aspect. We looked at the big picture, the international economy, and drilled down through national economic factors and into the local market, and then down as far as the Tyson's Corner real estate market. We came up with a problem definition that states, should the George Ellis and T-Rex Capital groups exercise their option, and it's a two-part problem definition, and if they do exercise their option, should they go ahead with the planned project? And Josh will touch more on that at the end of the presentation. This slide shows the existing transit map for the Washington, D.C. Metro system, and to the right is the Rosslyn-Ballston corridor. The Rosslyn-Ballston corridor is a textbook example of a transit-oriented corridor. The most important thing to take away from the Rosslyn-Ballston corridor, which is in Arlington County, right down the orange line, the neighboring county to Fairfax County. The most important thing to take away from the Rosslyn-Ballston corridor is that each node or transit-oriented development along the corridor is not homogeneous. They're made up of different elements. For example, the Roslyn node has primarily office use, where the Ballston node has an identity of residential and retail. As you go west along the orange line, the new Silver Line spur is Fairfax County's opportunity to have a transit-oriented corridor. The Tyson's West stop is the location of the demonstration project, and we feel its identity should be a residential office use. The maximum return, we believe, can be accomplished by maximizing residential and minimizing retail. We came upon this decision by the fact that 2 stops down at the Tyson's 123 exit, the Tyson's Galleria, Tyson's 1, and Tyson's 2 contains world-class shopping, probably over 1 million square feet of high-end retail shops. People think about TOD and they think anti-car. TOD, however, is not anti-car. It must work efficiently with drivers to be successful. You can't just pull people out of their cars. They're not going to give it up. Our recommendation for the project is to maximize parking to attract tenants to the project. With that, I will turn the presentation over to Kristen, who will outline our design concepts.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kristen Corwin, and I will be going over our site specifications and design strategy. First of all, our site is 7.4 acres. It will contain 4 mixed-use buildings, 2 of which are office space, 1 is condo, and 1 is corporate housing and hotel. Once the construction is complete, we will be going for the Platinum LEED certification. We will be adding green space to this building because we feel it will increase the superiority of the site. And also, a big factor is it is adjacent to the Tysons West Metro Station. The LEED certification, as I said, is platinum. We feel it will increase the marketability of this building, reduce operating expenses by having green roofs and large windows that will cut down on heating and cooling costs. Also, it will increase the floor area ratio by 10%. The LEED certification will also help attract more environmentally aware tenants, which we feel will help with our tenant retention. And this being the highest LEED certification, there's only a handful of these on the East Coast. So it's going to pave the way for other transit-oriented developments. The benefits of our design is this is an efficient tenant mix, we feel, that we have proposed for this site. Right here is our site plan, and you can see the yellow on our site plan. Those will be our retail buildings. We thought these areas would have the highest pedestrian traffic. Also, building A1 right here and A2 will be our office space, predominantly office space. A3, which is behind A1, will be the corporate housing and hotel mixture, and A4 will be our condo space. The red dots on each building are ingress and egress to the parking deck, 3 of which are above ground that contained within the building, and 3 will be below ground. This community will be just a cohesive development, each part working off of the other one. With people coming in from the metro, it will have the retail that's just for convenience. Some of the convenience retail we suggested be put into this building are shown right here, and we didn't want to compete with the Tysons that's down the street. So these were some of our suggestions. And with that, I guess I'll go ahead and hand it over to Mike.
Thank you, Kristen. Hello, my name is Michael Duncan, and I'm going to go over the mixture of the floor to area ratio and how we came to that conclusion. Okay, this is color coded condo, hotel, retail, office, and corporate housing. Those are the 5 uses we selected. And this is a quick breakdown of the percentage of total FAR that we will contribute to each. With our Platinum LEED certification, we will have nearly 1.7 million square feet that will need to be absorbed into the market. And that's a lot of square feet, so that was the main point in coming up with these figures. Condo will come in at 30%, hotel at 11%, retail at 5%. Like she said, just because we don't want to compete with Tyson's, office at the minimum 50%. That is because we'll have 844,000 square feet, and we don't believe any more office space than that could be absorbed into the Tyson's Corner market at this time. Last, we have a corporate housing, which will be the top couple floors of our hotel, and that's for our executive tenant clients that might be coming for extended stays, and we really think that'll be a great way to come up with a little more income. Following, we have the corresponding square footage breakdown, and in the bottom is the number of hotel rooms. Our hotel will have 371, approximately 500 square foot hotel rooms, standard hotel rooms, and our corporate housing will be 84 suites, and we think that's an appropriate mix for this area. Okay, next is the condo unit breakdown. This is the percentage of each 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom units. We'll have 40% 1-bedroom, 30% 2-bedroom, and 30% 3-bedroom, with an emphasis on penthouse type living on the top floors of our condominiums for our high-class clients. Next, this is a more detailed breakdown of our cost that we came up with. It starts cost in sale, land costs, soft costs, cost per square foot, hard use, parking construction, total construction, and I'm sorry if it's a little small, but I believe most of you have a copy of it. And it goes down to commission, sale price, commission, numerical value of commission, total value, and our bottom line profitability. We will use that for our now this is a little more detailed, or an easier read version of what I just showed you. It breaks down the percentage cost of the construction up here, It's important to notice that office comes in first at 53, and followed by condos, hotels, retail, corporate housing. And then down here it shrinks. This is the percentage of net sales to 44%, while the rest of our uses increase the value, and that contributes to why we chose only 50% office space. Next, we have our profitability index. This kind of shows the relationship that I was just speaking about of net sales and percentage costs. It shows that our hotel will be the most profitable compared to the cost, followed by our retail, our small section of retail, then the condos, and corporate housing, office, etc. We believe, like Will said and Kristen pointed out, for this to work, parking is essential. There's really no way to get around it, and at the end of the day, if there's too much parking, it can be sold in that area, and it's basically just really important to us. So we'll start off with the total parking cost and end with the parking cost after the proposed $40,000 sale per spot for the condos. Okay, first we have all underground parking, and it's listed over there cost, half underground, half above, all above ground parking. And after a lot of talk about this and switching the numbers around, we chose to do half underground and half above ground, not for the financial benefit, but more because of the traffic and congestion in the Tysons Corner market. And we don't want any of our high-class tenants to be either 6 floors deep or 6 floors high trying to get out of their parking garage come 5 o'clock in Tysons Corner. That's it for me, and now I'm going to turn it over to Josh Ridpath. Thank you.
Hi, how's everybody? As Mike said, my name is Josh Ridpath, and I'm going to be going over just a little bit of market research we did after we proposed this design that we came up with. We still believe that the design we came up with, from a long-run perspective, is really the most beneficial use for this prime site in Northern Virginia. And we went through and we did a little bit of research on the most part office statistics, just because at 50% of almost 1.7 million square feet, office is definitely the meat of this development. So we went through, we found that there was about 35, or asking price for Class A office space is running at about $35 per square foot, which is a little below the originally proposed $45 per square foot when we came up with a lot of our profitability figures. And to the right of that, we have completion versus absorption, and we have a chart illustrating vacancy rates, and as you can see, they're about 15% present day. So that brings us to our returns that we mapped out, and we first did this through, we had to think of the limited partners, since we, or the developer would in effect be soliciting money from them in order to get this project running and off the ground. And we established a hurdle rate of about 25%. And we did that, we toyed around with the equity contribution ratios in the beginning, and we determined that the limited partners, in order to realize about a 25% return over an 18-month horizon, assuming sale of the property, like the information that was given said, they would have to contribute about 45% equity, as opposed to the general partners at about 55% equity. And as you can see, the general partners would also realize about a 55.5% return over an 18-month period. But we got to thinking, and this is where we started using a lot of our market research to formulate, let's try and forecast what exactly was going to happen. We just for illustration purposes, we mapped this out over a 24-month period, just because we kind of decided that building up 4 huge buildings and being able to sell them all off within an 18-month period is kind of unrealistic. And so we mapped it out over a 24-month period, and as you can see, the return drops off significantly, largely due to holding costs and just, like I said, just the cost of retaining that investment. Which brings us to our problem definition. We're going back to the original decision that we encountered when we first started this case. And that is, should the George Ellis Group and T-Rex Capital exercise the option to purchase the land? And if they decide to do so, should they proceed with the planned development that we've recommended? And in terms of the market right now, we recommend that the George Ellis Group do not exercise the option to purchase the land and seek renegotiations, simply due to the fact that the market can't sustain the type of development that we chose. And I know from a short run perspective, you can cut out a lot of the luxuries and a lot of the brand name that we've attempted to build over a long run horizon, but we just don't recommend that would lead to, I guess, the long term sustainability of this investment. So like I said, or like we recommended, the George Ellis Group should seek to renegotiate the option and just sort of wait this thing out and just see what the market brings. And when the time's right, the development will happen. So that brings us to, I guess, a few reasons why we kind of decided on this. We looked at the current economic recovery that the information provided kind of went over, and we felt it was a little abnormally optimistic. For instance, we could have another sharp decline in real estate values. It's not too far out of the question. Or a jobless recovery, or continued disequilibrium in the Class A office space markets as well as the capital markets in general. We also believe that the 6.5% cap rate that was used to originally value the asset when we were thinking in terms of selling the property after the 18-month period was extremely low. After doing market research, we kind of determined that about an 8.1% cap rate should be applied to this investment present day. Now, we could probably, I guess, just given the potential of this brand of development and the thing that we're trying to strive here for, it probably could sell at a slightly lower cap rate, but right now it's just not feasible. And the rental rates, like I said earlier, for the office space at $45 a square foot, as we illustrated earlier, they're just really low. And when you take out that kind of contribution to your potential gross revenue, it's going to not completely, but significantly diminish the value of the investment. And the other thing we looked at that we thought was kind of interesting, we started doing a little research around the market on condo developments, and we found the Lionsgate development in Bethesda, Maryland. And this development, when a tenant decides to purchase a unit, they automatically get 2 free parking spaces as an amenity, and they're able to trade them amongst themselves or sell them as they choose, or they can choose to buy other spaces as an extra amenity. So we kind of decided that would be a little bit of a hurdle for us to overcome in order to sell a lot of these condo units in the first place. And that brings us to our revised capital structure, and this is in terms of all the present-day market statistics that I mentioned earlier, the 15.2% vacancy, the 8.1% cap rate, and the $35 per square foot on Class A office space. And as you can see, over an 18-month horizon, you realize negative returns, so it really just should not be pursued at this time. And with that, I'd like to thank everybody for having us and open the floor to any questions. Thank you.
I have a quick question. What if George Ellis can't negotiate an option on that land? What would you recommend that he do? Let it expire, or go
we kind of talked about that, and do you want to talk about it, or? Go for it.
Yeah, we got to ask that earlier, and it's the obvious question. I mean, all developers want to develop, and we know he has an option. First of all, you want to move forward. So our best bet right now at this moment would try to be to extend the option if we could. If, I understand you said that's not possible. If that's not possible, come down on the land price, because the reason we went so big and so extravagant with this thing is to try to overcome the cost, $160 million for land. So if we can come down on the cost of the land, it is feasible to build something smaller and still have it profitable. But at what we were given, the information we were given, this is how big and how crazy it would have to be, in our opinion, to do it.
Under your crazy assumption, what was the total project cost?
I can show you one thing.
The one slide you had on there.
Yeah, so it's all the way back to big chart. There, go back. Total construction cost. This is not including the land. $490 million plus almost $491 million.
The total value of $753. Does that include the land?
No, that does not include the land.
There's no land in that number.
No, there's not.
In the
753, the land's in
Yeah,
that
no,
number,
no,
yes.
I'm sorry. Yes, it is.
Okay. Good.
Sorry. Sorry about that.
I'm sorry.
And that's on 1,700,000 square feet.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
And that
slightly less.
includes-
It's
that
like
includes your parking costs.
Yes.
Yes.
You built half and half. You built the decks. You considered that parking
It
cost?
includes the cost and the sale of the condo
That's at
parking.
$35,000 per spot underground, $22,000 above ground.
Do the math, you were projecting 3,200 spaces.
Yeah, there's a, even more.
That was a lot of space.
Because we provided a little bit more space. We did the maximum amount for the condos, because also in the case it says that you can sell them for $40,000, and that ended up cutting a lot of the parking costs. And I showed that in another chart.
Doesn't that fly in the face of the transit-oriented development?
It does a little bit.
You're right, and we tried
Transit-oriented development is designed to curb sprawl, increase transit ridership, and decrease car use. But we feel to be successful, to have a CEO come into this building and say, do I have enough space for my employees that want to drive, that don't want to take the metro? And we feel that the additional parking could be rented out to, on a daily basis, to the metro riders as well, and that would also draw pedestrian traffic into our retail zones. The parking is often overlooked in TOD, and like I said earlier, TOD is not anti-car, but we think we have to have the parking to bring in the office tenants, and without that, if we strip this down to nothing on the parking and made it a lower end development, it wouldn't command the market rates that it needs to be successful.
Did you all consider throwing in any other sort of anchor in there, like an entertainment complex that might?
We feel that we would be competing with the Tyson's Galleria and the Tyson's 1 and Tyson's 2, which does have a movie theater, and just down the road there's Wolf Trap Performing Arts Center as well. So we really wanted to create an identity for this project, and that would be kind of work and stay identity, if that helps answer the question. So.
Did you do any analysis that would tell you what you might pay for the land if you were able to renegotiate the option price?
We felt that it was such a unique piece of property that getting the comparables wouldn't be realistic. We did do analysis on moving forward with the option and then trying to hold the property under its existing use as a car dealership, and there's multiple uses over in that area. There's a body shop and other things, and we projected about a $32 per square foot per year holding cost on that, and we just didn't think that it could support that. The current use could support that. And an interim use, we didn't think that there's an interim use that can support that kind of land sale rate. And we do think this is the right project. We worked on this and we wanted to make it work. We liked it so much, but at the end of the day, the economic factors said no to renegotiate the option.
Someone made a comment about maximizing FAR. Are you guys opposed to that?
That's what we did
We
with
did.
the Platinum LEED certification.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
But you sounded like you didn't feel that was the best thing to do.
No, we do think that's
Wait.
the best thing to do. Get going for LEED, Platinum certification, and maximizing the FAR was the. If we could move forward with the project in a better economic environment, that's what we would do. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Is this all of our stuff?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Huh? He does all day long.
Whatever it is, that's right.
Alex. You all set?
Good afternoon, everyone. We're the Four Corners group here to present our development proposal for the Tyson's demonstration project. The overview of our presentation, we're going to start out with a short executive summary, go into the market overview, development plan, project economics, and then go into the risks and how we plan to mitigate those risks. To start out, I'm sure you guys know by now, we have the option to purchase this parcel of land in Tyson's Corner, Virginia. It's located in between Dulles International Airport and Washington, D.C. In particular, this plot of land is going to be located along the Dulles Corridor Metro Rail project as well. So for our recommendation, we plan to redevelop the existing plot of land into a vibrant, mixed-use, transit-oriented development designed to accommodate a future vertical expansion option. All of our buildings are going to be Class A LEED Platinum certified, and our overall goal is to create a 24-hour vibrant, live, work, play community. A quick deal overview, which will be gone into further detail later. We plan to develop mostly residential and office space with first floor retail and a hotel integrated into one of the buildings. After some calculations, we concluded this is going to give us an IRR of 20.22%, and included in that projection is a 375,000 square foot vertical expansion option, and it's going to cost us around $550 million. And we hope to finance this through a construction loan, which we will potentially roll into a permanent loan. The investment merits from this project are numerous. One, limited downside exposure. There's an opportunity to develop this underutilized location between two great areas. A chance to team up with several local organizations and to initiate a balanced community development. And to give a market overview, right now, Tyson's Corner can be considered the world's most successful office park. Although some might see that as an achievement, Fairfax County does not, and that's why they want big change. As you can see, there's 120,000 workers here and only 19,000 residents. More parking spaces than jobs and workers, and the daytime population change of 54,000. So over the next 30 to 40 years, Fairfax County is looking to transform this into a vibrant downtown area and create up to 200,000 jobs. And also, while creating jobs, they want to have residents there, increase the number of residents. Also, we're going to have dense buildings, or Fairfax County wants dense buildings with emphasis on public transportation. And there's several demand drivers which is going to make this project viable. One is location, as mentioned before, in between these two gray areas. And our parcel of land is going to be located directly adjacent from the new Tyson's West Metro stop. That's going to bring in a lot of traffic and make allow for potential business there. Not to mention the strong local economy here. Northern Virginia has turned into a huge business capital along the East Coast with a highly qualified workforce. This has already attracted in a lot of businesses that have relocated their headquarters. To name a few, Hilton, Volkswagen, and SAIC have already relocated their headquarters here. And so as just mentioned, we think there is future potential for high demand, but because of this demand, I think there's going to be a lot of developers, not only us, that are going to want to jump on this opportunity to build. And it's going to create a short-term oversupply of office space in the area. Not to mention that Fairfax County is strongly pushing for downtown development. As you can see here, these are a couple of developers that have already begun planning. Right across from our property, which is the Star, they got residential and office space planned. So to accommodate for this forecast of future potential high demand and short-term oversupply of office space, we've created a vertical expansion option which allows us to mitigate that short-term risk, but in the future take advantage of that potential demand. And to further describe our development plan, I'll let Adam take over.
Thanks, Bo. Okay, so I'm going to be talking about our development plan more in depth. As you can see, we really decided that Tyson's Gate should be a completely mixed-use development. We really took that to heart. So we wanted to include retail on the ground floor of each building, and we also decided to incorporate office, condo, apartments, as well as hotels, or a hotel within our site plan. And we feel that this combination of different developments really provides the best and most efficient use of the land. As far as the vertical expansion concept goes, what we're looking to do is build building A1 and A2 to their initial heights, as you can see here. And really what it allows us to do is mitigate the quick influx of supply in the market, and so we can really time it with the option to expand either 8 or 7 additional floors on those 2 separate buildings. And so the benefits of this, like I said, are mitigates downside risk, and it allows us to have a lower initial capital investment, which is really crucial with such great uncertainty at this time. And the FAR would increase from basically a 4 to a 5.25. And with the transit-oriented development, Fairfax County is really pushing for, as you can see, a high-density, livable community area. And we feel that Tyson's Gate not only meets these requirements, but it exceeds them. And so just an example, the high density, we feel that, allowing us to take advantage of the expandable option shows the community itself that we're willing to work with them and try to make the entire place better. And as far as parks and green space goes, we realize that because location, this particular location is crucial. It's located directly across from Tyson's West Metro Station. We felt that the ability to develop densely should be paramount. And in order to do that, we had to come up with unique ways to include parks and green space. And one way that we felt would accommodate that would be rooftop green area on residential buildings, so they could have basically a park where they could go and relax. And in addition to that, integrated landscaping and green areas throughout the entire community that are a little bit smaller, but because there's the proximity to Bragland Road Park, we felt like they could use that space as well. And so it's basically a win-win. We spend a lot of time on our parking. We feel it's efficient, lean, and out of sight. Basically, each office building, A1 through A4, has a 3-level subgrade parking structure underneath it, and there are also just quick 2-hour limit retail parking side off the street. And we feel like that this really allows us, because we have minimal reserved spaces and maximize shared spaces, that this creates different peaks for their demand. It increases efficiency and allows us to have less parking spaces required. As far as our timeline goes, you can see we are basically trying to time our site completion with the Tyson's West completion. We have added a little bit of cushion there just because there is such uncertainty with that, which we'll go into a little bit later. And it also displays our new strategy for our new exit strategy, which is basically selling our assets in office, retail, and apartments upon stabilization rather than when they're first completed, in order to maximize our capital gains on that. Basically, when we were looking for possible office tenants, we decided LEED Platinum would be the best way to go. It allows us, although there is higher cost, we are able to achieve a premium on our rent, and so we would be targeting larger tenants who would be willing to pay that premium for the space, because we feel like that they would be most interested in promoting the idea of this mixed-use development, transit-oriented, where they would encourage riding the metro and help save and lower their carbon footprint all around. As far as the residential offering is concerned, we would be targeting smaller single families, largely younger demographic, and really we would be pushing pedestrian, bike friendly. It's close to the metro. It would have like a close knit feeling, which is what they're used to. Instead of a lot of people in this area wouldn't be used to living in a high rise, so we feel like pushing a sense of community where neighbors would know each other and interact with each other within the space would really be beneficial, and a lot of people would respond with increased demand. The hotel profile, we basically would be looking for an upscale hotel provider to realize that there would be demand from not only the office, but the office supply that we would have, but also the great location between Dulles International Airport and Washington, D.C. And as far as retail tenants go, we basically segregate it into two categories. A1 and A2 would have retail tenants which would focus more towards the office demographic, which would be Starbucks, restaurants for lunch, possible shopping for once they get off work, things like that. A3 and A4 would cater more towards the residents, which would be grocery stores, CVS, things for everyday use. In addition to that, we'd also be looking to actively promote and partner with different organizations such as DTP and Fairfax County in order to increase the metro ridership, which would really bring more traffic to our development, and in addition allow us to create personal relationships with people in Fairfax County in order to facilitate our development going forward. And here's just our final vision for Tyson's Gate, which would be a 24-hour community where you can live, work, and play. Now I'm going to hand it off to Kai-Feng for our project economics. Thank you.
We have spent a tremendous amount of time to construct our financial performance. We are confident to say that with our vertical expansion option to limit the downside exposure, while it's still able to capture potential strong demand. The project will have 20.22% IRR. More importantly, the superior IRR for limited partner made this project extremely attractive for potential equity investor. This slide includes the source and use of our fund. We add 5% contingency cost in order to be conservative. Option premium is the additional cost for having vertical expansion option to building A1 and A2. Before constructing our financial performance, we ran a Monte Carlo simulation to prove that our strategy can perform well in the best case scenario and have relatively high return in the worst case scenario. The simulation assumes 15-year holding period. Two of the key variables are actual realized rents and vacancy rates. The difference between the expected IRR of full development and the expected IRR of Tyson's Gate is 1.7%. However, in the worst case scenario, Tyson's Gate is able to have 9.56% IRR, which is the highest of all. The simulation clearly shows that our strategy is able to capture potential strong demand while limiting downside exposure. The next three slides is the sensitivity analysis based on our 5-year financial performance. Vacancy rate does not affect our IRR much due to two reasons. The first one makes use of asset class diversified vacancy risk. We sell hotel, condo, and a portion of parking space in year one. The strong initial cash inflow help us mitigate vacancy risk. The second reason is that the value of our vertical expansion option is not greatly affected by vacancy rates. Again, cap rate sensitivity analysis shows that our strategy has limited downside exposure. That surely can be one of the selling points to our potential equity investor. This slide is in the aggregate of all sensitivity analysis. Even in the worst case, our equity investor still gonna have 17.82% IRR. The financial valuation shows that our strategy can generate high IRR with limited downside exposure. This project provides an excellent investment opportunity for our potential equity investor. And next, I will turn over to Daniel. He will talk about risk and mitigation.
Thank you. So we believe that Tyson's Gate provides a great investment opportunity, but also it's important to consider the risk in our mitigation strategy. Being such a revolutionary development for both Tyson's Corner and Fairfax County, our project faces some complex risks and relationships that need to be examined. We've split our risk into two broad categories to help explain them. The first is metro risk, and the second is market risk. Metro risk begins with a construction volatility relating to the metro project. Political and financial instability endangers the viability of the metro project. Even with $900 million of public funds invested in the project, to invest $116 million to exercise the option could result in a financial catastrophe if the metro does not come to fruition. In addition, a significant delay in metro construction would jeopardize our front-end cash flows and severely change our IRR. So efficiency and adoption is the next great risk. Let's assume that the construction of the metro goes perfectly fine and it comes online as scheduled. We face a risk that commuters just may not adopt the public transportation. If they don't adopt the public transportation, we face a ridership issue. And a ridership is a critical assumption, both for the transit-oriented development and our community, Tyson's Gate. Limited ridership breaks down and has two more possible negative externalities that are really, really big and are really huge concerns for the community right now. First, the Tyson's Gate traffic impact. If we face low ridership, then we'll have a traffic impact on the community that is absolutely unacceptable. The I-95 corridor is already congested, and with additional traffic from our site, if ridership is not accepted, will be a deal ender. Also, commuter insufficiency means that if people don't ride the metro because it's not efficient, it's not reliable, it's not consistent, that'll bring less consumers in to shop at our stores and to stay in our hotels. So this all leads down to the three main problems with traffic congestion. First, I've talked about the I-95 corridor and how it's already bad. Now let's talk about the insufficient parking that would ensue if Tyson's Gate commuters or the metro has low ridership. If our community does not adopt the ridership, then we'll have insufficient parking because our development is based around the fact that Tyson's Corner has certain needs they need, and the demand or the metro ridership is the only way to meet those demands while also meet financial demands. And if there's insufficient parking and congestion, then there's future public resistance, and we have property and interest in that. And if there's future public resistance, then none of this really will make sense because it all needs to be integrated. It all needs to be one huge project. So the construction volatility, we plan on partnering with DTP and taking full advantage of Mr. George's relationship and several different boards to limit our risk there. We also have a timing cushion. Our metro's efficiency adoption, we also look to a partnership. And one of our holistic and integrated designs for our development is we're going to offer free or subsidized fares to attract tenants in our space That'll also increase ridership and promote the whole vision we have for the community. So we also face market risk with this development, and with a lot of developers with a similar timeline, there could be a supply shock, and so along uncertain submarket absorption and rent, along with that, could cause a potential oversupply. To mitigate that risk, we use the vertical expansion option and our disposition upon stabilization rather than a disposition after construction completion to have high returns and also mitigate low end risk. So Four Corners has developed a plan by first looking at the strategic issues that surround this development. By stepping back, we've been able to create a holistic and integrative creative approach to first solve the community's issues with this development, and then secondly, meet our financial demands. So we believe that Tyson's Gate will be an integrated project that will be a great demonstration project for Tyson's Corner and encourage future development there. I'd like to open the floor for any questions.
How does that vertical expansion option work? Explain that. I mean, you say it's a risk mitigant, but it's not clear from your presentation.
Okay, well, the vertical expansion option is a risk mitigant for a couple of reasons. First, it's unclear what the demand will be when we develop, and we have to make those decisions now. And we looked at phasing development, going back, but the cost of phasing development is less than the actual. It's recommended 12% on hard cost premium for an option to build an option available building. We added 20% to hard cost to be conservative, and that allows for us to have a lower supply that will more fit the demand of the community, mitigate our risk by allowing less vacancy in the downtime, and then when demand rises in the future, like we assume it will with the rest of development around the area, we have the option, or we can sell the option, or we have the option if we're still holding the building to add 370,000 square feet of prime office building or prime office space and prime location, and so that is how it's going to mitigate risk.
Yeah, but how do you deal with the issue of having to pay $116 million for the land up front?
Excuse me, can you clarify that?
How do you deal with the issue or the reality, financial reality of having to buy $116 million of land up front? How does your option, how does this vertical expansion option mitigate that expense? How do you recover that expense?
It doesn't. The trade we figured out that this project, the main thing is not the financial returns; it's a risk associated with it. So we traded a lower high-end return and even lower medium-end return for a higher worst-case scenario. If we develop the building to 5.23 FAR as it stands today, and you had 50% vacancy, you could lose a building. Whereas we have a building that will generate positive returns, and when that demand is there, we have the option to build it higher and meet the demand and generate the revenue that we think this project will eventually.
So you're basically underdeveloping the site with the option to add extra FAR when the market's there, but you still have the cost and the penalty to the short-term returns.
Well, I would say we're not underdeveloping the site because we're not sure that the demand's there for full development at 5.23 FAR. So we're
Assuming that you don't, later on, you are underdeveloping.
we're assuming we're developing it to what the demand we forecast will be in the next short term. In the long term, that's why this option is so great, because in the long term, we see the option to increase the supply and meet the demand there. It's two different stages. We see demand here, we see demand here, and we can meet them at both points.
Have you successfully used this vertical integration or vertical expansion option elsewhere? Are there case studies where this has
Sure.
been successful?
There's cases in Boston, Chicago, Ontario, and actually we've sourced a lot of our information from an MIT commercial real estate thesis that actually shows that this is a viable option. It's kind of like real estate, real option theory. It's becoming a science, and we've found out that this is a real option, and in this case, we think it will work. So, I mean, it's worked in the past, and it's worked in situations similar to this, and we think it will work here.
Your pricing of that, what's the baseline?
Okay, yeah. Because it's an option, so we basically we're using the threshold model to price the option, the vertical expansion.
But you'll have increased construction costs. You'll
Yeah.
build things into the base building to make it
Correct.
work. when it goes up.
That's true.
Is that imputed in your number?
It's a 20. It's a
The 20% premium
it's
on hard costs.
the MIT thesis that we based a lot of this on recommended a 12% addition to hard costs. Here, since we want to be conservative, like he's mentioned, we haven't done this project before, so we want to be conservative, and we don't want to make any assumptions to our investors that we're not pretty sure what happened. So instead of making a 12% premium on hard costs, we made a 20% premium on hard costs.
Do you think you'll have lower rents on your bottom half? And have you calculated, I mean, if I were a tenant, I'd be a little concerned that a long-term lease I'm going to have.
That's the beauty of a vertical expansion. You can build it so tenants do not have to move out. They're not affected at all.
But the rent, somebody at the top floor is paying a premium.
Absolutely.
At the top floor. They're not going to be at the top anymore. They're going to be in the middle. Right?
Absolutely. Well, we've targeted this development specifically for high-growth companies where the premium is on a contingent space. So as they grow, they get an option to go up higher, 8 floors or 7 floors higher, depending which building they're in. So that's really why we targeted high-growth, platinum, LEED platinum companies, because we see them as fitting our overall vision the best. And so it's a holistic design in everything we've done.
You still feel comfortable that, I guess, with your original construction, that you've got adequate parking to accommodate the vertical expansion?
Parking is an issue we spent a lot of time working out on. And we found that, in general, shared parking, so this means we have, we've employed shared parking. And what shared parking is, it's shown to be either, say you have 100 reserved spaces, that can equal up from 150 to 250 shared spaces, because there's people, when they go to office and when they go home and when they go to retail, it's all different. And so we've utilized minimum reserve spaces. The only minimum minimum parking requirement is in condos, and we've met that with 196 reserved spaces. However, we've only reserved 2 spaces per floor plate in the office building for executives and people who realistically make decisions and want a parking place. And we've left the other ones to be shared, and we've applied a 2.0 efficiency factor, which is in the middle, and we think it'll be higher because it's on a metro too. And this has allowed us to say with confidence that right now, if we had as much demand, if we had as much usage as the option, 375,000 square feet, it may not work. But the thing is, this is the beauty of our idea. As people come in and see the metro and begin to buy into the ridership idea, we think people will start using the metro more. And it does have, you can see here that the parking ratios aren't that bad, and when we add 375,000 square feet, we think they'll still be able to accommodate future users.
And in addition to that, we have different kind of policy to discourage office workers to drive to work. Like we can give them, because we have partnership with the DTP, and so we can give free metro pass to some of the workers there, so to discourage them to drive to work.
And not to mention the LEED, the corporate culture that would be in a LEED building would be more likely to ride the metro than drive anyway.
Because I'm not buying it. I'm going to give up my BMW because you're going to get me a pass, a metro pass?
Let me ask you this: are you an executive? If you're an executive, you have 1 or 2 spots on your floor.
So I'm under par. So I got to go somewhere else.
You have effectively, you have 1,002 shared spaces, 1.5 per 1,000 feet.
That's 3 too few.
Right. In your vision of this development, in our vision, where they incorporate all the because this doesn't work. This doesn't work with the traditional transportation.
I agree with you. It doesn't work. But let's go to something else. Vertical expansion. You're going to build 150,000 square feet on top of what law firm?
Whichever one wants the 150,000 space on top of them.
No. Well, I have a law firm that occupies the top 8 floors. That's who we're going to lease it to, right? I mean, it's
right.
DC. So what kind of construction are you doing on top of their head?
I mean,
why aren't you doing a separate building? Why not have the balls to build the tallest building you built?
The reason we decided not to do that is because currently there's just too much uncertainty, and with that uncertainty, the value of the option increases. And because we don't know what the exact demand is going to be, we're not able
to definitively say that it's worth it to build it. And so with our mitigation strategy, the potential downside is significantly less.
I hear you, but I'm not buying that. Why don't you build one building, build another later?
It's because
Why would you try
this
to
is
there's the lawsuit of building vertically plus all the costs. And by the way, I think your 20%, that's just the cost of your insurance. Right? Way off. And where are you going to stage all this stuff? Not going to happen. Totally unfeasible. Where are you going to put everybody? In your new park?
I mean, there's in Chicago when we were researching this because we really didn't know much about it either. I'll give you that. And we researched it and we watched a YouTube video of it sounds terrible, but we watched a YouTube video of the building in Chicago.
It's a Blue Cross Blue
the
Shield.
Blue Cross Blue Shield building, and it was crazy. They first bring one crane up to bring another crane up to bring another crane up, and they effectively do not disturb any of the tenants in any of the buildings. And we're not going to spring this on the law firm. We're going to tell them in the lease, there could be the possibility that you'll have an expansion over you. But the thing is, we'll note probably 2 to 3 years earlier than we're actually going to start construction on that option, and we might not even own the building by then. So, I mean, the benefits of the vertical option outweigh the risk. And to talk about your hard cost assumptions, we just used the best sources we had available, and I'm not, they said 12% hard cost. We added 20 to be conservative.
All right, I'll give you that. I'll tell you one more thing I'm not buying. One more thing. Mr. Lynn, show me your sensitivity analysis on your vacancy.
Sure.
All right, you want me to write you a check for $200 million, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you want me to dump this in the project that Aaron and I are golfing buddies at the country club, right? So he's telling me that the worst that he's going to deliver to me is that 19.6 IRR. That's his worst case.
No.
Sensitized.
It's based on 15% of vacancy risk.
If you wanted to see like the absolute worst case, then a better graph would be more looking at this, because this incorporates the fully potential downside, or you can even look at the aggregate sensitivity analysis, which incorporates like worst case. This is just cap rate or vacancy sensitivity. This holds all other variables constant at our base case.
And that's why we had the vertical option. That's why we mitigate the risk of vacancy with the vertical option, because if you don't have space, then a vacancy rate is going to affect you less. So is it more likely that we'll be able to fill a 200,000 square foot building? This is just hypothetical. 200,000 square foot building or 400,000 square foot building? And in which case does the vacancy rate matter more? And the vertical expansion option, this model, the option, in this case, the option is not built. And so the vacancy rate does not have as big effect on the total project as it would if we were to build all the way up.
But the option itself still has value,
right?
Because the future demand could increase, the cap rates could decrease. So.